I'm Karen McMahon with Pig Health Today, and I'm visiting with Erin Kettlecamp from Swine Vet Center in St. Peter, Minnesota. And today we're going to visit with you about biosecurity related to supply entry and hog units. Can you tell me what some of the strategies are for good biosecurity in that supply entry category?
The good news is that we've got multiple ways of doing that. And so some of it can be as simple as utilizing time and temperature. So items that are bulky or difficult to disinfect, maybe with a spray down or in a fogging chamber, as long as we can dedicate those to a segregated space where they will not be touched or tampered with, and we can heat them up to about 100 degrees for 24 to 48 hours, we're very confident that pathogens do not like to survive in that environment. And so that's one way that we can bring items in, is after significant time and temperature downtime. Extended downtime, if we can't reach high temperatures, is always needed. From there, if we've got a fumigation room, we can set up some different fogging type disinfectant work. And then from there, if that's not going to be effective, we can always spray items down or hand wipe them with disinfectants as well.
How big of a problem do you see the supply entry as far as causing issues in a hog unit?
Some of that risk hasn't been well quantified. We get supplies either from warehouses and things like that. So in theory, those items are brand new and maybe won't cause big risk, but if those items are cross-contaminated with other items traveling to other farms, held at different warehouses within a system, that could potentially be a cause of concern that hasn't quite been measured yet today. Other things that are maybe more of a concern are maintenance tools that will go from farm to farm within a system. So it all varies kind of where those tools are coming from and then what farm they might be arriving to and how closely that interrelates.
What kind of a strategy do you recommend for that moving of tools?
If we know that these tools have come from another sow farm or other swine operation, we know that there has been contact there. So we know that there would be risk, especially if there's pathogens associated there. A layered approach of disinfection would be recommended, where you could utilize both time and temperature and disinfection. So you could use a fogging practice or maybe layering that with spraying those items down. But additionally, those items would have had maybe some downtime in between there to rest and not come straight from one farm to another.
When you were at the University of Illinois working on your degree, your DVM, you did some research that's related to this area. Can you go into a little bit of that research and how it might apply in these situations?
I spent some time looking at fogging practices, and originally what was being done in the industry was these foggers were used in these fumigation rooms, and disinfectant was applied, and it was kind of choose your own disinfectant, whatever you wanted to apply. And what we found was that foggers aren't very effective commercially based, because we just turned them on and ignored them and then didn't recognize the fact that they weren't actually permeating the room and acting like a true fog to disinfect all these items. And so items were either getting stacked close together where the droplets couldn't reach. The droplets were just rising and falling like if you had hand sprayed them. And so the bottoms weren't getting contacted. There was shadowing. Sometimes, I mean, we forgot to put disinfectant in the fogger. And so that was a big hiccup. And obviously that doesn't work. And so from there, we furthered that research and said, okay, what can we do to make this better? And so a new technology that was identified in the human medicine world is that of a dry fog. And that's very important because that's a very small particle than what we would use in a traditional fogger today. That's more of a fine mist. And then from there, it was very concentration dependent on a specific disinfectant. And so it had to be hydrogen peroxide and a peracetic acid blend, because and then the way that those particles are emitted, they need to be small in order to have the appropriate chemical effects to actually act as a true vapor within a chamber that can be effective today.
So when will this kind of technology be applicable to these farms? When will they be able to use this?
Today, a true dry fog system isn't quite commercially available to swine farms, and so there's things to consider there. While we could get potentially a unit that's used in human medicine, they might not be as durable as what we'd like to have on a farm. They might not be as easy to use for farm staff day to day. They might require a lot of training or other equipment. And so hopefully we'll develop a new technology so that way it is more readily available on farm. Instead today, what we can actually do is calibrate the hurricane fogger that we would use to get as low of a flow rate as possible, and we can make that process better. And won't be perfect, but it'll be much better, and we can get at least a 90% efficacy rate on that fogging practice.
And would you add in then another layer of security on top of that?
If somebody wanted to use a fogging practice, it's an excellent tool. It's not going to be 100%, and so I would pair that with either some extended downtime or time and heated temperature protocols as well on a farm.
And I know you've also done some work now at Swine Vet Center in truck washes, which seems to be kind of a sticky point.
Sure.
Can you tell me what you've been doing and what you found?
We took some time in a couple of systems to look at their truck wash audit, really going out there into the field and saying how we want this process to occur, and let's check and see if we're doing that and doing that effectively. We would assume that a truck is 100% washed and cleaned and disinfected, and then we go and check and you're like, well, the ceiling didn't quite get hit this time, or oh, there's still some dust in the corner there, we missed that. And so again, depending on risk and what we're hauling, that could be a big deal.
So what do you recommend then? How do you keep people on task? Any suggestions?
Even if we have a procedure list in place, it's always good to have a third party or another person that wouldn't be doing that every day to come in and just check and make sure that we're being as judicious as we can in all of these practices. And that would be the same for any biosecurity practice. It's always good to have somebody else come in routinely and just check and say, hey, you're not to place blame, but let's just make sure that we're all staying vigilant and not becoming relaxed or overlooking things that we normally wouldn't.
Are there any other areas that you see that need some shoring up?
I mean, overall sanitation is really important to have that be not just something that we talk about maybe once a month or whenever our visits are, but it needs to be a true culture to keep everything in order. And that stems from just the office into the hallways, pressure washing, and that exudes out into how clean we keep the farm in general, and protecting it from all sorts of biosecurity risks, whether it's fomites and rodents and things like that versus, true aerosol effects.